Hello, my fellow sovereigns, and welcome back to another episode of the Crown Yourself podcast. I am so excited to be here with you today because today we are diving into this belief that I have faced hand in hand with many of my clients who have many passions, who are skilled at many different things, and the belief and the fear of no one understands what I do. And that's why this week is all about the multi-passionate marketing. How do you market yourself as a brand, as the queen, as the king of your domain, of what it is that you're creating, of this legacy that you're building when you do multiple things? And so I hope you take from this episode a paradigm shift and find the labels that really resonate with you and, more importantly, resonate with your audience. Let's dive into the episode. Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of crownyourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now. Hello, my fellow sovereigns, and welcome back to another episode of the Crown Yourself podcast. I am so excited to be here with you today in this glorious podcasting space to dive in, to be challenged. Like, have you been challenged today? Because we're about to get into some challenging thought patterns and belief systems that stop you from your own expansion. Because up in here, we ain't got no room for petty princess BS excuses. Can I get an amen on a whatever day you're listening to this podcast? For me, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. So I am so excited for this topic because this is one that I have seen come up so often, and that I used to have this as well. Because I think when you have a skill set that's transformational, meaning you can transform people's lives, you can create epic results. I mean, my clients have done everything from fulfilling their childhood dreams and buying themselves a plane to achieving their 1-year goals in 3 months financially, to doubling their monthly revenue to multiple 6 figures, to getting their highest sales year and getting engaged, to landing their dream job and space to travel and time for their loved ones. And I mean, the results run the gambit, right? And so when you have those type of results, sometimes there is a belief and an excuse that we have that, like, I just don't know how to define this. Like, I mean, honestly, have you ever had this belief where no one is like me? I don't know how to define what I do because what I do is so magnificent, so out there, it's so spiritual, it's so psychic, it's so intuitive that it's hard to put into words in this physical realm and gauge this language of reality. So there's this belief system that no one can understand this, amazing work that I do. And sometimes this can come from having so many certifications up the wazoo, or so many degrees, or having so many abilities. Maybe you have some intuitive abilities. Maybe you have psychic abilities. Maybe you're clairvoyant, clairsentient, whatever, and you just pick up on things. But here's the biggest thing that I have seen, and this is what stopped me for like a year in landing on what I actually do with my branding back in 2016, 2017. All right. So what does this belief do to our businesses? What does this belief do for our customers? And I think first, let's get into why we have this belief. Because why we have this belief a lot of times is because it's very hard to see the label from inside the jar. So when you're in the jar of whatever juicy, pickly delight you are, I'm just going to assume you're a pickle instead of maybe jam. If you prefer jam, you can be jam. But sometimes you don't know what are the ingredients that make up you. You are in the jar. There's no label as to how much sugar or protein or, even what your name is inside of this jar. This is just the container, right? We're inside of the container in our own stuff. We don't know what's on the outside, what everybody else is perceiving us to be. And so when we have this belief, that's like being a labelless jar, where think of if you were in the supermarket and you were passing by all of these labels that define what this jar is. And then there's this one mystery jar that is a clearer jar and it's got something in it. Would you buy it? No, you wouldn't buy it because there's no label on it. There's the labels and the language that we use gauges other people's perception of our experience and of our reality just as much as it gauges our own. So when we have the labels of language, and actually language are what we do into language, it gauges people's experience with us. That's why whether you're developing your own personal brand or whether you have your own business, the language that you use, it gauges whether people are a fit for you, whether they want to buy into you, whether they want to pick you up off the shelf. If you're just a labelless jar of goo, whether the people don't know, is this jam? Is this mayonnaise? Is this vegan? Is this gluten-free? Like, they don't know. And if you are stuck inside the jar and you're like sitting inside the jar wondering like why people aren't buying you, it's because every other freaking jar knows what label they are. They have the labels, they have the description, they have been gauged into a perception of reality where people know I want mayonnaise, I don't want plum jam. So that's one piece, is it when we are able to define what the jar is, that is how we are able to contain also other people's perceptions of how they interact with us. So when we go around saying, well, no one, like, what I do can't be labeled and what I do can't be put into a jar or put into a box, then you just aren't clear on the labeling process and you aren't clear on your own buying process, because people ain't going to buy something that they don't have a label to, at least not in this 3D realm as we know it at this moment. So secondly, you're judging your customers. Like, it's basically like having a jar and on the label, you're judging that your customers won't be able to read it. So that judgment reflects in your customers unconsciously upon their buying decisions. Like, if you're going through a supermarket and let's say you're in an international section and you don't know what is in the jar, you don't know what it is, you're going to feel some feelings come up. You're going to feel some feelings of not knowing, not understanding, not being able to translate. And maybe you're like my husband and you'll go buy something just to explore it and try it just because you can, because he's a chef and that's what he does. Some people will, but majority of the people won't. They'll feel not understood. They will feel like, oh, this doesn't translate into my own language. And this isn't about language, of course. I'm using this as a metaphor. This is about the perceptions of the judgments that are going on inside your ideal customers when they're looking at this jar that you have specifically said, basically unconsciously said that they don't know how to read. So you've put it in a different language and they have no idea how to read it. And then they don't feel like they may really love what's inside the jar, but they would never know because they can't read the label. So being able to translate what it is that you do, not an interpretive woo-woo dance, but in actual language, will gauge their own perceptions of what they do, as well as give you clarity on your own, by the way. So first and foremost, stop judging your customers, your audience, by saying that they won't understand what it is that you do, because what you do is so transformational that it defies the laws of language. Like, trust that language actually gauges people's flow. It puts the banks on the river, literally. Banks is a good word for this because it puts the banks on the river so that they know what direction you're going to take them. Like, if you buy a jar that has no label on it, you don't know whether to put that on a piece of toast or to put that in a BLT sandwich, or to, like, you don't know what it is. You don't know how to use it. So the language of the labels that you use to describe what you do is allowing your customers to know how to use you, how to interact with you, what to do with you. Otherwise, without language, we don't know. Like, we're not yet evolved to read your spiritual realm, not all of us, to be able to say what it is that you do and how you can help us. So be able to language that which you do. The second thing that it does is, aside from putting boundaries for your customers, it gives you clarity for yourself. If you don't know how to define you and what you do well, and this is whether you're an entrepreneur, a career woman, a career man, like whether you're an executive, you're in corporate, you need to be able to define what it is that you do well so people know how to use you. And not saying that you're going to be used by them in any sort of nefarious way, or a way that, confronts your boundaries, but you need to guide people as to the perceptions. If you don't guide them, then they judge you based on the labellessness of like, oh, she must not know what she's doing, I'm not going to buy into her. So being able to have that clarity, it also allows you to have the clarity, and it also allows you to have the inclusivity. If you have been feeling like no one can understand what you do, like you're so different from everybody else, because of this, that, and the other. You're a special sign. You're a special human design. You're a special sort of sweet treat, and you're just so different from everybody else. The paradox is that you are different, and you are exactly like everyone else. You have fears. You have emotions. You have feelings. You have struggles. You have problems. You have challenges. You have joy. You have success. You have happiness, ideally. But by you claiming and languaging, by using language that says you don't know how to language who you are actually telling your unconscious mind that you don't know who you are. So you don't know how to define who you are. So it makes you more isolated, and it can make you more lonely in this journey. So this is where the power of having reflection, people around you, asking for guidance, asking how people see you, being consciously aware and putting yourself into the seat of that third party person watching the movie of you doing you in your life. You get to see, are you the main character of your life that you actually want to be playing? Are you actually that person? Because I can tell you, if I'm trying to think of a good movie that is an example of someone who didn't know who they are. Great main character. Okay, for example, Holly Golightly, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Didn't know who she was, had a certain perception, tailored that perception to the world, to what it would get her, etc. Didn't know who she was. And thus, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know the results that you provide, the world is going to define those results, and the world is going to define who you are. And you may not like that definition. And typically what I found is when people say they don't know how to put who they are into words, they don't know how to gauge their own perception, they don't like the definition that society has thrust upon them. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know how to language yourself and put those boundaries on who you are, who you're definitely not. And it's not to say that this won't or can't evolve. It absolutely can and probably will as you ascend and evolve and transform throughout your life, or deepen or enhance. But the main thing is that you have to be able to gauge with your language. This is the masculine energy of establishing those clear, firm boundaries, rather than no one understands me. No one knows what I do because what I do is so transformative that it can't be put into words. Because I can tell you, when it's that, if no one can understand you, that what you do is so transformative you can't put it into words, then the problem is that you also can't put you into words, which means that you, as the person who is reflecting that into society, and it's reflecting back that you don't know who you are, you don't know what label's on the jar, it's reflecting back that lack of clarity, which also means that it's reflecting back probably and most likely, and what I've seen having coached high performing leaders for the past 7 years, is that when that happens, there's a lack of sales, lack of income, because you don't know how to define or language yourself and aren't clear on who you are and what you bring to the table that is so different and special and awesome, and how you are also one, how we are all one, how you are similar. And because when you are lacking that ability to see yourself as one, because you think of yourself as so different and special and unique and a unicorn, the problem is that alienates people from you, does not build trust, and people buy from people that they know, like, and trust, whether that's buying into hiring you for a certain job position or that's buying your products and services. So this is where clarity on who you are comes into play. Who you are, not just by the definitions of, what your human design is, or what your astrological sign is, or what your, personality, Chinese astrological animal is. All of those are tools. You are more than a tool. You have to, though, know how to define yourself, or else allow the world to define it for you. And odds are you will probably not like how it's defining you. You'll probably not like the label that they slap on the label-less jar, because typically that's going to be sitting on the shelf for a while until it gets thrown in the trash because people didn't know what to do with it. So understand that you have a great purpose in this life. And the way to achieve that great purpose is you have to have the clarity to language some boundaries around what it is that you do, who it is that you are, what are the values that you stand for. Because being the amorphous, all feminine energy, not, floating space, being in that lack of understanding or belief system where people don't know who you are, and because what you do is so special and different, it's reflecting back on your own lack of clarity about yourself. So like I said, this podcast was going to challenge you. So if you've been struggling with this, then whether it's in your personal brand or in what you're doing, or if you're in some sort of transition in the world, definitely just shoot my team a message if this podcast spoke to you. We love seeing your emails. And if you'd like to work together, I do have some spots open for consults this month to really dive into creating the clarity around what it is that you bring to the table as a person, sovereign being first, and as a brand second. As always, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.